Welcome to Follow to Lead, where we discover how to listen for and follow God's call so that we might lead others to God. Our shared stories of inspiration from religious leaders and those active in the educational ministry of the church can help you know better how God is calling you and the role passionate Catholic education plays in spreading His message of faith, hope, and love. Now please welcome the hosts of Follow to Lead, Father Randy Sly and Kyle Pietrantonio.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Christ, the teacher, teach us to listen. Teach us to do the deep listening to the sounds of our soul, waiting to hear your voice, calling us to cast out deeper, to become fishers of men and women, shepherds of souls, to follow your will in order to lead others to the truth, beauty, and goodness only you can offer. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Welcome to Follow to Lead, a journey twice a month into the world of Catholic education, exploring what it means to follow God in order to lead others to Him. I'm Kyle Pietrantonio, your co-host.
And I'm Father Randy Sly, and today we are going to be talking with Andrea Chavez-Kopp, who is the Chief Learning Officer for the Procedo Project, which seeks to partner with schools to develop, implement, and curate innovative models of Catholic education. Now, Andrea is a 20-year veteran of Catholic education and youth ministry. She holds a BA in secondary ed and a Master of Education in Instructional Leadership from St. Leo University. And after working for Catholic schools in Florida, she spent 5 years with the National Catholic Education Association as the Director of Formation and Digital Engagement, and then as Director of Advancement in Business Development. And in looking over her biography, I just want to encourage those of us who have extra roles in our school assignment, because in her last school, Andrea served as middle school lead teacher, 6 to 8 STEM co-teacher, faculty technology mentor, iPad coordinator, G Suite administrator, as well as youth minister. So Andrea, you really had your hands full at that school, and welcome to the program.
Thank you. We call that other duties as assigned in Catholic education.
Exactly. And that usually is the big portion of the job description.
Andrew, we're so glad you could be with us on Follow to Lead. And as we begin our time together, we'd like to invite you just to share a bit about your background and especially why Catholic education and Catholic schools have been an important part of your life.
Yeah, thank you. You know, people ask me about my background and sort of how I went on this career path, and it's really and truly by accident, very infused with the Holy Spirit. I, never necessarily intended specifically to be in Catholic education. I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I grew up Catholic. I went to a Catholic university, but I graduated, and that first opportunity I got was in a Catholic school, and everyone since has been either in church parish ministry or in Catholic education. Yeah, every time I've intentionally looked for a job, I never found one. And every time I wasn't looking, God put me where I needed to be. So that is, it has led me to be very comfortable with, my vocation and that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And, God moves those chess pieces when He wants to. So I was in school and parish ministry, and then came to the national level quite accidentally through attending an NCEA convention where I got sort of plucked and recruited to come to the DC area. So I moved my kiddos and we came up here, and that's where I started my career with the NCEA. And if you look at that bio, Father Randy, you'll see that I think I had a different title every year I was at NCEA as well. So I got to do a little bit of everything there as, leadership changed. And I was very blessed with that time because my worldview just expanded quickly, and I made so many great connections, and have just been really blessed in my career to get to do a lot of different things. And now here we are with the Procedo Project, which has been, sort of a dream for a while. All of those passion projects and things that I wished I had more time for, that's what I get to do all the time now. So it's really just been a blessing.
Andrew, you mentioned that it was somewhat accidental how you got involved with working for NCA, and when you and I first connected, you shared that funny story, and I'd love it if you would recount that for our audience.
Absolutely. If we have the time, I'm happy to do it. It's a great story. I was at the NCEA convention. I was teaching in Florida, in Panama City, Florida. The convention, it was 2015, was in Orlando. I actually had never heard of the NCA. I'd been teaching 15 years. I didn't know that organization existed, but they were in Florida, and our principal at the time said, well, we're going to go to this, and we road tripped. Now, for those of you who were in the classroom in 2015, especially if you taught little bitties, there was Catholic Exchange had this social media contest called Flat Francis, because Pope Francis was coming to the US. So for those of you who don't know about Flat Francis, it's like the book Flat Stanley, a little paper doll. So we took Flat Francis with us because one of the teachers was a kindergarten teacher. And we were taking pictures and selfies all along the road trip, and then at the convention. And, you know, the convention center was huge, and it was just a big deal to be there. I'd never been to anything like that before. So we decided we wanted a picture of Flat Francis on the big stage. So, you know, we couldn't get onto the stage. So I decided, well, I'm going to just go ask someone if they'll do it. And the front row of that big convention center was reserved for NCEA staff. So I don't know anything about anything. I figure I'm never going to see these people again. What difference does it make? I just march up there and say, hi, I'm Andrea. I'm from Panama City. We have Flat Francis, and I really want you to put this on the Jumbotron so I can take a picture. That was my whole goal, to get a picture from my school social media. Nobody wanted to deal with me, and rightfully so. Now that I spent so much time working for the NCEA, I don't know how I wasn't escorted from the building for doing this. But, you know, so they kind of said, oh, you have to talk to so-and-so and so-and-so. So I had worked my way down the line, sort of asking, hey, I just want this picture on here. Can you help me out? And so they kind of just passed the buck. And then I finally turned to the next person and said, are you important enough to make a decision or not? And he said, young lady. And I just said, listen, this is what I want. It's very simple. I want to take a picture. I'm from Panama City, and we have Flat Francis. And, you know, so finally, I didn't realize I was talking to, at the time, the president and the vice president of the NCEA. I didn't know who they were. So, you know, the lights are flashing and it's time. And I give them Flat Francis, and we go sit down. And then the keynote comes up and gives this wonderful, moving talk that I don't remember at all, because I was just wondering if they were going to do Flat Francis or not. So at the end, the president of NCA comes up and he thanks the keynote for their words. And he says, and now there's a special dignitary I'd like to introduce, and holds up Flat Francis. Well, we were hooting and hollering because we're Florida people. We hoot and holler. That's not a hoot and hollering kind of event, I learned, but we did. And it was great because, you know, 80% of that audience is elementary school teachers in Catholic schools. So they were all doing it. They all knew exactly what that was. I think it became the most photographed moment of that convention. But that silliness sort of led to, you know, we went up, we said, thank you. And the leadership there at the time, you know, said that was just so, you remind me what it's like to work in a school. That was so fun. And is there anything we can ever do for you? And at that point in time, I just started my master's and had leadership, and I needed a mentor, and that led to conversations. And, you know, by the end of that convention, you know, they just said, you know, we're restructuring. This sounds kind of crazy, but would you ever consider moving to DC? And then obviously over a period of months and interviews, you know, that happened. But really it was predicated on just Flat Francis, a paper doll. So when I say the Holy Spirit is really what led me to my career path, that's what I'm talking about.
Great.
That is such a great story. And I remember the Flat Francis days back in 2015. That is super. You know, Andrea, you mentioned the Procedo Project and what you're doing now. Could you kind of share with us a little bit of the genesis of the Procedo Project?
Yes. You know, my partner in founding the Procedo Project is the CEO of EduScape. We had worked together in a business relationship at the NCEA. We became fast friends because Alex is very, you know, in the ed tech space, which I am, and we we always wanted to elevate and do a lot of programs, and NCEA had to be all things to all people. We did some great work with NCEA and Eduscape when I was there, including offering ISTE certification to Catholic schools across the country. We put that program together, and really, that, for those of you who don't know ISTE, it's the International Society for Technology and Education. Year one of their national certification, Catholic schools were the largest group of people who were ISTE certified. I mean, we were just so proud of that work, and we always wanted to do more and more and more. Those are our personalities. So he had always, sort of said, when you're ready to leave NCA, let me know. Well, there's so much work to be done in Catholic schools. When is anyone ever ready to leave? But with COVID happening, and really a lot of things canceled and downsized and uncertainty, and the schools just had so much need. Alex said, I just really think it's time. So we said, let's do this. We started out with Procedo with really just helping with hybrid and remote learning, just really triage, helping get teachers and dioceses learning about technology in the classroom, how to adapt, keeping themselves and kids safe, those types of things. So that the summer was very, very heavy in that area. But the real mission of the Procedo Project is innovation and sustainability in Catholic education, in all facets of Catholic education. Instructional strategies is certainly an important part of that, but it's not the only one. We want to look at what innovation and sustainability means across many facets. So what does that look like in faith formation? What does that look like in leadership formation? How are we looking at financial models differently? The financial structure of Catholic schools often is, we're operating at a loss. We're not charging as much as it costs to educate a child as, so are we needing to challenge some of the very basic tenets of how we look at and do things? We certainly don't pretend to have all of the answers, but we really are passionate about leading the conversations and also highlighting the really good things that are happening in Catholic schools. These Catholic schools have been just leaders nationally in opening schools, in managing COVID and keeping kids safe and taking on hybrid and remote instruction, many times just over a weekend. They just figured it out of necessity. And while there have been bumps in the road when there's that sort of massive change, we want to make sure that those practices that have worked, or those stories, are being told, and that we don't get through the pandemic and say, we're glad that's over. Let's just go back to the way it was, because the way it was really wasn't working before. And I don't say that because I'm saying anything negative about Catholic education. It's really, we've seen for years and years and years the headlines of Catholic school enrollment dropping. And there was NCA just released their data a couple months ago about Catholic school enrollment being the lowest it's been in 50 years. But even if there hadn't been a pandemic, Catholic school enrollment would be the lowest it's been in 50 years. So we really need to look at some of those structures. And perhaps a blessing of the pandemic is that we now have permission to step outside of our comfort zones and really challenge ourselves to do things in new ways.
Andrea, you recently had your inaugural conference event with the Procedo Project called Forefront 2021. Can you tell us a bit about what you were wanting to achieve with this event, and if there were any highlights from this first conference for you?
Absolutely. We were very excited about Forefront. We really did this, again, as a leap of faith. We didn't know how many people would come. We don't know if people were tired of being online, and, I have organized a lot of professional development conferences and events, and, the common factor that I get frustrated with in them is when the topics and the talks are too sort of ethereal and not practical. So one of the really important qualifiers we had for inviting presenters to be a part of Forefront was they needed to have something practical that somebody could implement right away. We wanted practical strategies. We also wanted practitioners. I love consultants, but we wanted practitioners. They have a different kind of credibility, especially, sort of in a high need time. The other qualifier I had when I invited people to present was, I don't want anything you've done anywhere else. I don't want you to just reuse a PowerPoint. If you did it a year ago, it's obsolete. So I worked with people that, I knew would rise to that challenge and had something interesting to say. I have been very lucky in working with so many presenters over the years that, I know lots of people. So I felt excited to be able to pull together just a really high quality, high caliber group of educational leaders and practitioners to just offer that back to Catholic education. It just was something we decided, we just really want to give this to people. It's different. Some of the highlights were, that people showed up. Honestly, we were excited. We had, great attendance for our first event. We used our event ed platform, which, we went beyond kind of like just the series of Zoom links. We put it in an event platform. We think that went very well. We had some excellent talent, especially Peter Reynolds, who was our headline keynote, who's a very famous children's author and illustrator. We had Michael Roberto. We had New York Times bestselling author Jodi Blanco. We just had a great cast of characters sort of sharing their talents, great presenters. And I mean, it's hard for me to say, here were the highlighted presenters, because I handpicked all of these people and I know they're all excellent. So we just feel really blessed that we were able to offer it and put it together, and it came off well. It was well received. And we're still sort of, following up on some of the elements of that. We've had people come to us and sort of ask us to help them do their events and help them with some consulting pieces. So it's led to a lot of both credibility and visibility for the Procedo Project. So that's been really exciting too.
Andrea, before we began recording, you were mentioning some of the strategic planning you and your colleagues are involved in right now for the Procedo Project as you plan ahead. Can you share some dimensions of what's in store for the Procedo Project?
Yeah, absolutely. We have had several dioceses come to us and really ask for advice in how to navigate through the federal funding that's coming through. One, some of the funding they weren't able to spend in the spring that they had planned to. So they have that money still allocated. They have money coming in from COVID relief and all the different title funding and the EANS funding. And it's just a lot, so how can we work with them? We have people who are experts in federal funding who will consult for free to come in and say, here's some different things you can look at. Here's how you're not maximizing this. Here's some maybe different ways you can reallocate some of these asks. You can get the most out of it. It is a historic amount of money that's available to Catholic schools right now. And we want to help them be good stewards of that. So that's a big focus for us right now, is just helping schools plan as good stewards, how they're going to use that to maximize their sustainability, not only for right now, because we have a pot of money to spend, but really how are you going to make this so it's helping you out long term, and it's going to elevate your practice and increase your sustainability over time.
Is this something that you're going to make available then beyond these dioceses, hopefully in some of the webinars and things like that? Because this is, I know here in our diocese, this is really a big ticket item, for us to look at.
Yes, we are. There'll be webinars on the topic, and certainly anybody who has an interest in that, would just like a more personalized one-on-one conversation. We're happy to do that if they reach out to us at the Procedo Project, or through you guys, if they know you more than they know us. I'm sure you'll be happy to connect us. But that consultative piece, we're happy to offer that to anybody who needs it or would like it. And then in addition, a lot of people have come to us to said, well, we haven't had our diocesan days, or we need to plan our PD for the spring and we're not quite ready to bring everyone together. Or, we don't think we need to physically bring everyone together because, we've transitioned to virtual pretty well. Some schools are struggling with learning loss. Some say, what, we've been great with learning loss. We want to look at other things instead. So, the needs are different depending on if people have been in session, how well equipped they were to transition. We're doing technology audits. So, sometimes dioceses want to say, how can they look at their technology implementation more systemically? And I think that's probably common to have pockets of sort of excellence in one area versus another, and how can we look at sort of bringing everyone to that same level of excellence across a diocese.
The other day I was going over your website just to kind of familiarize myself with some of the nuances and things that are going on with the Procedo Project. And I was intrigued on your About page. Of course, your mission says to seek to develop, implement, and curate innovative models of Catholic education. And then one of the guidelines goes on to take that even further, saying we believe innovation is a mindset and a culture that needs to be cultivated and supported long-term to create meaningful and sustainable change in Catholic education. You know, to some people, the word innovation is kind of scary. You know, like, are you going to change the faith? Are you going to, change the world of Catholic education? Could you kind of share a little bit of what innovation means to you and to the project as you work with schools?
Absolutely, and I wrote that, so I can talk with great authority to what I meant by that. You know, I have, in addition to my work with schools, I've also done a lot of work with just different catechetical organizations across church. Innovation, people sometimes sort of associate with the idea of technology, and you know, I get a lot of that fear-based emotional reaction, which I understand. You know, change is universally scary, right? So, you know, when I try to explain this in the sense of, you know, sustainability and business models, you know, from a marketing perspective, let's say, and I'm not reducing Catholicism to a product, but I just want to sort of use this analogy. You know, a company or a product, they want to get their message out in the most effective way. We have perfect content as people of faith. We have the Catholic faith. The content is perfect. What we have is a content marketing problem. How do we better evangelize and put that message out there? We cannot be in the business of forming disciples if we are not in business. So this is not about changing the faith or changing belief or changing tradition. It's about better communicating it and educating people to bring them along with us, because, you know, we are called to be evangelizers, and that's what we're trying to do. So this is, you know, when we say innovation, we don't mean it in the sense of, well, it's time for the church to change. It's really, you know, it's time for the church to think about if they are still reaching people the way that they want to be reaching them, and what are those unmet needs. Innovation happens when there's an unmet need that's identified and somebody meets it, and then it changes. You know, when you talk about, you know, disruptors and influencers and all those buzzwords, who better encompasses that than Jesus Christ? He's the ultimate disruptor, the ultimate influencer, right? So innovation is Catholic tradition. It just is.
That's well put, Andrea. In your 20 years now in Catholic education and ministry, I'm thinking there's no doubt in your mind that these past 12 plus months now have been among the most unique and likely most challenging of your career. We've had wide-ranging issues, from racial tension to a global pandemic to a hotly contested national election. For you as a leader in Catholic ed, what has been the hardest adjustment over the past year?
The hardest adjustment, there's been so many adjustments. I think change fatigue is just universally there. You know, as much as I say, oh, we should innovate, I understand why that just sounds exhausting. There has been tremendous change. I think the other piece that is very challenging, and it really doesn't matter if you're a Catholic educator or leader or not, it's just universally challenging, is the divisiveness that just encompasses everything that we're doing. But it is certainly very prevalent in Catholic ministry and Catholic education. In trying to minister and care for our communities, we're doing so in a very public eye. So, you know, schools that try to, you know, provide statements or outreach or something, there is a fear behind that of it's the wrong thing, or it's too much, or it's not enough, or it's not inclusive enough, which sometimes can paralyze into doing nothing, which is worse sometimes. So I think that there is just a lot of people are exhausted. They want to do good. I think for the most part, people want to include people. They want to help heal their communities. I think many Catholic leaders are more than willing to look at sort of some systemic historic wrongs maybe that have been part of their community that it's time to address in the tragedies that have happened with the murder of George Floyd and how people have reacted to that. I think, people are now willing to look at themselves in a different way, not because they, necessarily meant harm by anything, but really, okay, what are the things that we need to re-examine as educators, as Catholics, as leaders, as a church, and how are we going to lovingly support each other through that? Because that's the other piece. We can sort of identify things that weren't right, but how do we together get to that next place and help everybody come along? And I think that's a real challenge. People want to do that work, but it's challenging work, and it can be scary because of some of the political divisiveness that's out there. That is a big part of the digital discipleship movement that we are working on. Digital discipleship has been a passion of mine for many years. And what I mean by that is, there's a lot of digital citizenship curriculum and those types of things that are out there as sort of on the secular side, and taking elements of Catholic social teaching and social justice and tradition and infusing that into existing digital citizenship curriculum. There's a lot of meat there that really can help us tell those stories and operate as catechists and evangelists in a digital space. That can help us all behave a little bit better both in the public eye and digital spaces. And our young people can be great leaders in this area as well. Sometimes they're better at it than the adults, I dare say, maybe not universally, but I think sometimes we have some things to learn from the young people who've grown up with all of these platforms and technologies.
I think that's a really good point. And I think you've got everything from the baby boomers, which I'm a part of, to we've got the millennials, you've got the Generation X, which is between the two. And then now you have Gen Y and Gen Z. And each of us brings a different context to that understanding. And so I think that is a big challenge right now in terms of, meeting the needs of all of the different generational communication pieces that you've got out there.
Yeah, and we need to stop arguing with each other about the generations too. I'm very tired of that. Even before the pandemic, that was, the boomers this and the millennials this, and we're all just trying to get to heaven. Let's just calm down and just be a little bit nice. I think if I could boil down my whole digital discipleship, it would just say, be nice. Just be nice. Don't be a jerk online. And that would, if we could just do that one thing, I think that's 80% of digital citizenship and digital discipleship and all of these issues,
Yeah. Yeah, I used to do a seminar entitled "Any Kook Can Have a Kingdom Online." And it kind of goes with that. I'd like to just kind of explore a little bit about you and your background. You currently live in Northern Virginia, but I'm guessing that's not where you were from originally. Could you tell us a little bit about your upbringing?
Sure. I grew up in Bonita Springs, Florida. That's in between Naples and Fort Myers. So Southwest Florida. And, my family's from there. I was there until till after I got married and started having babies and such. I went to school at St. Leo University in Tampa, Florida. And my husband got transferred to Northern Florida. So that's how we went there. And, I've just always, like I said earlier, I've always sort of had a job in Catholic ministry one way or another, but I did grow up Catholic. My family was Catholic. And it had, my parents divorced when I was in elementary school. And I think like a lot of families, when that happens, like there can be sort of a break in the faith a little bit. And over time, my family became less active in the church. When I was very young, my mother taught Sunday school and, volunteered and did all those things. And then all of a sudden, she was a working mom and our life was very, very different. I went to Catholic school, but then I couldn't anymore because we didn't have the resources. So, I had like a little bit of a foot in sort of both worlds. I had a very kind of storybook start, and then things, went awry as they do in life. And that, makes you stronger in many ways. But I was blessed with a really strong, close, loving family. I still am. So I felt like I had a strong foundation there. But one of the things that And people ask me, why were you so dedicated to going to church when you were young? Because I was a teenager. As soon as I got my driver's license, I decided I'm going back to church. And I had a younger brother. He's much younger, 12 years younger. And I would take him because he really wasn't part of that idyllic part, So I always sort of felt bad. He didn't get that, going to church every week. And so I brought him. He was a toddler and I was a teenager. But that was like our special little thing that I took him to church. And then, as he got older, and I can't say I know why I did it. I just felt like compelled, like I wanted him to have that because we had that. And I always found the church and the faith to be a constant in my life when a lot got taken away. So, I just feel like I've just always had this call to be in church one way or another. And it's continued professionally. And it's just always something that, has made me feel at peace, that I have a home here. And it has been a tremendous, overwhelming, humbling blessing to be in Washington, D.C. and be on these national committees and be on podcasts and telling people what I think about church, because who cares what I think, but God put me here. So I'm going to say it. And I am very cognizant that is a blessing. And I feel very, very lucky to have gotten to serve, in this capacity and get to continue to serve in the capacity and now be in a position where I'm really forming my own voice, where I had been a support and a voice for other organizations. And I'm proud of the work that I've done. I think this is a sort of next level step for me that I'm very thankful for. And I hope that it helps. I hope that it helps school. That's really the point. I just want help and I want the work to matter. That's it.
Andrea, as you reflect on your career in Catholic ed to this point, who were some of the main influences on your discernment in this journey?
Sure, I can tell you one of the teachers I taught with in my last teaching assignment in Panama City, Mr. Jimmy Boss, he still teaches at that school. I think he's in his 38th year at that school. Wow. And started teaching there in his 20s and was such in a very unofficial capacity, a spiritual director to me, where yes, I'd had my sacraments. I grew up Catholic. I'd been in the church, but really, sort of deepening my prayer life and my personal devotions and learning a thing or two about obedience when things were not ideal at the school and those types of things. I think spiritually, he brought me a really long way as a friend and a colleague. And the interesting thing about that friendship is that he was very technology phobic. Where I used to say he couldn't say the word computer without the prefix evil, the evil computer, the evil iPad, the evil, and then we got a pastor who came in, and it was not a great situation. We had a pastor who came in very suddenly and was one of those, I'm going to change everything right now kind of guys. And, bought all this technology and we had no infrastructure for it. And we had all these wonderful veteran teachers who just really had varying levels of ability. And the person who was the computer teacher at the time didn't know anything about Apple products. So Father Randy, when you're reading the iPad coordinator, Google, I did that out of necessity. There was no plan, no plan. So, with Mr. Boss, to help him, just really, he was my friend and I wanted to help him keep his job. And he came to my house every Wednesday over the summer and we practiced. Here's how you send an email. Here's what an attachment is. Here's how you do your online gradebook. There was no goal other than to help because he helped me. And I was like, well, this is easy. This I can do. So, I informally started helping people. And in the middle school, this is a Florida school, so it's all courtyard. The older kids that I taught were blue and the elementary kids were white. So whenever an elementary teacher needed help, my middle schoolers would say, Mrs. Kopp, a white shirt is coming. and they would hand me a little note and I'd say, okay. And then I'd run and help whatever they needed to do with their smart board, because we just got so much technology and no training. We had kids with iPads and we didn't have Wi-Fi. I mean, I just had to figure it out.
Oh my.
And, yeah.
It's the proverbial cart before the horse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think there was so much struggle in that situation. And through that struggle, every single one of those things that I thought, this is terrible, has become something that has put me on the map later on. If I hadn't, had to figure out how to become a Google school back in 2013, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now, and all the, the iPad stuff I learned with my kids, the kids I was teaching, because they had these things and their parents were like, they're just wasting time all day. And I was like, you're right. So let's figure it out. And we figured out together how to implement these things, it was a good way to learn, honestly, because the kids know more than we do sometimes. So it was fun to sort of evolve that way as a professional with my students and really get to see what they did. So, I would say, like, biggest influence colleague wise, I would say Mr. Jimmy Voss for sure. I've had some wonderful mentorship through the NCEA as well, though. I mean, sure. I've just been really, really blessed.
We'll have to make sure Jimmy gets a recording of this podcast.
Andy. I will.
Absolutely. Our audience is predominantly Catholic educators, and they're all in the trenches as you are and as you have been. As you look back over all that you've done, maybe this would be kind of helpful for those who were in the trenches. Can you think of your biggest professional setback and how you navigated through that to a good place?
Well, I wasn't prepared for this question. I'm going to go with this year. I didn't expect to be downsized from the NCEA this year. I was a very high performer, and I had just gotten promoted, and, the world fell apart, and they, rightly had to make some really tough decisions. And it just so happened the things that I was in charge of weren't going to be things. So they had to make some tough calls. And to be able, I knew that I had relationships with other companies and organizations that I could tap into, but I didn't know for sure what was going to happen. So there was a little bit of panic there in sort of thinking, okay, what am I going to do now? It was the middle of a year. It's not as, that wasn't the ideal time to be looking for a job in Catholic education when the whole education system shut down. So I know I'm very cognizant of how blessed I was to, be so quickly taken up by Eduscape and forming the Procedo Project. And I've worked really, really hard with lots of help from good people. I mean, we talked about all of the people who came to forefront to present, which was over 50 people donated their time live. And I say donated, nobody got a penny for doing that. Everybody came and did that in service to Catholic schools. And I was able to cash in lots of favors and leverage lots of relationships to make it happen. So I think that probably is the biggest setback, but then it was also a great blessing in many ways. I think Catholic school teachers are just heroes. They do more with less continually. They deserve the recognition for that. We need to do better with our financial models to make sure that they're compensated and treated professionally. We need to help them elevate their own practice because there should be great pride in being a Catholic school educator. I'm very proud of Catholic school educators and proud to be one and proud to help them.
Andrea, there's a age-old adage that says demographics are destiny. And right now, the metrics in our American Catholic Church don't seem very hopeful. What counsel or advice do you have for our fellow leaders in Catholic education who are in the trenches about the current demographics and our situation?
By demographics, do you mean age demographics, numbers? Which demographics are you referring to?
I think before our recording, you alluded to the NCA data report that was released a couple of months ago about the sharp decline in enrollment to a 50-year low. I think that's key among the data that's on a lot of minds and hearts right now. Sure. I mean, infant baptism rates have been plummeting over the last 20 years in particular. All of this is, future funnel for those who are ministering in Catholic schools. So I'm just curious your thoughts on that, and what advice you might give to those who see this and say, gosh, what is that going to mean for us?
Sure. Well, I think that it's really important to remember that we're people of faith and not be fatalistic about, okay, well, let's just ride this thing out till the bitter end. We have a lot of opportunity in front of us. Enrollment now should not and does not have to be limited to the number of desks you have in a physical space. Okay, so we have learned a thing or two about remote instruction and new ways of doing things. What are we going to do with that information to maybe expand what our idea of enrollment is? When are we going to stop competing against our neighborhood schools and parishes for resources and start cooperating with them? Because partnership is going to be the way to go here. We have to stop the petty infighting over, the religious ed kids broke the crayons in my classroom, and that sort of stuff that you laugh because it's completely relatable, right? So we have to start thinking outside of ourselves in a little bigger picture, and remember that we're all in the same ministry here. So I think looking at partnerships in a different way. I think we need to look at allocation of resources. There are families now whose lifestyles are completely changed. Maybe they had a child who did better with remote learning because of their social emotional needs, or they're in a family situation where, the child has to split time between two parents, or the parents are now used to working remotely and they want to go live on a sailboat 6 months of the year. Can we still provide them a Catholic education? We need to do better with special education and inclusion. We need to really make a point of having everyone feel not only welcome, but well served in our schools. It's not about, okay, we'll accept you. It's really, we're going to accept you and you're going to excel here. This is where you belong. And I think that there's some mindset with that as well. With special education, there are some people who, maybe feel like that's going to change the demographics of their school, or maybe they won't be looked upon as well because of stats or data. That's not who we are as Catholics. We're called to be inclusive. And we need to look at what that means in our communities and how we can partner with other people to do that. I think educating ourselves on, our rights and federal regulations and how schools can maximize the funding and things that are there. I think that some schools sort of try to stay out of that because they say, well, if we take federal money, we can't do this, we can't do that. That's not really true. There's a lot that Catholic education, private education can do with federal funds and still keep their Catholicity. I think we need to look at, marketing and business as a reality of our schools. You can take the best teacher in the world and educate them and elevate them to a principal, and they can be a fantastic instructional leader. But the reality is they are now running a multi-million-dollar business, and we haven't educated them to do that. So I think we need to do better in our leadership preparation programs on that specifically. I think our Catholic higher institutions need to be in partnership with this as well. How can we make those skill gaps really more accessible financially and time-wise? Not everyone has time to go do a doctorate in organizational leadership to learn those things. So how can our Catholic colleges and universities help? How can they help with diversity? How can we, make sure that we're attracting new people to Catholic education and helping place them and then mentor and keep them in Catholic education? That's probably a lot more than you wanted me to say.
This is rich.
Some excellent thoughts, Andrea, and I'm glad.
This is like 7 more podcasts right now.
Yes, I know. We'll have to have you back. I mean, we could totally unpack some of those points into excellent episodes. I know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Andrea, if people want to know more about the Procedo Project, where online would they go?
They can go to theprocedoproject.org, and anywhere on social media is at the Procedo Project. They can find me personally at ADKopp, Kopp 76. I'm easy to find online. Just Google me. And yeah, that's the easiest, quickest way to connect with us. And please tag us in things and tell us what's going on in your school. Kyle, you mentioned the NCEA data. I also have heard a lot of people really sort of upset about that narrative because they say, hey, wait a minute, our enrollment has gone up, or hey, wait a minute, we've done this in our community. And it's not all gloom and doom. There's a lot of positivity out there.
Yes.
So the Procedo Project wants to tell those stories and bring that balance, that equation a little bit, because Catholic schools have done a yeoman's task in impossible circumstances, as we always do, and have done great things. So we want to be able to support you. And if we can help you with any of your needs, call us up. If we can't do it, we know someone who can.
Well, that's wonderful. And we really want to thank you for being with us today. This has really been, as Kyle said, this has been a great content-rich discussion. And we do need to circle back around and have you back again to maybe unpack some of the things, especially in that latter part where you were just sharing some really, really inspiring things that we need to talk about as educators. And it's interesting that the pandemic has really been, I think, has brought the best out of Catholic education in terms of, this has been a time where we've seen here locally in our high school, a huge influx of public school students because we are in person and we're educating, and they get here and they're just enjoying it. And so this is a great season for us.
Yeah, I think that for many, many years, I always heard, well, how do we compete with free? Well, we didn't. I mean, free's gone, and we've done some good work. But the question is, how are you going to compete with free? How are you going to keep them? How are you going to make your community irresistible? Because I will tell you as a parent, if I were ever angry at my child's teacher, it would be really hard for me to leave that school because I identify with that community. I'm going to be much more likely to stay because that's home to me. So we need to think about that as well. Our families are yearning for social community. We have been so isolated in the pandemic. So there's tremendous opportunity there. And this is what we do. We're communities of faith. All of these things are part of our tradition. I think this is a little bit of a wake-up call to say, hey, COVID's not a strategy. What are we going to do? What are we going to keep? What needs to be refined? But there are lessons to be learned. And it is not like, that's over, let's just get back to the old way. That's not going to work.
Well, Andrea, again, thank you so much for being with us. And we're so excited about being able to give some more visibility to the Procedo Project and to all that you're doing there. Congratulations on Forefront 2021. That was a great event to participate in. And we're looking forward to more great things that you're having in the future. And again, for our audience, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to our podcast and be sure to leave a comment to encourage us toward future programs. We also want to thank our production interns, John Sampson and Alex Shire, along with our production supervisor, Mr. Jack Alsbach, for producing this podcast. And may Almighty God bless you.
We'd like to thank you for joining us on this episode of Follow to Lead, a production of the Duke and Altum Schools Collaborative. To learn more about finding your own path in your journey of faith, or for more information on what we discussed in today's episode, you are invited to follow us on social media and visit us on the web at diaschools.org. To provide a one-time donation or monthly pledge, please visit our website. Your gift will aid us in providing up-to-date information, additional resources, and other support on how to take Catholic education to a higher level. We look forward to helping you follow God's call to lead others to God right here on Follow to Lead.